Thanks very much, AJ. Well, let's talk about the agenda today. We're going to start with some opening remarks from our president, Jeff Preston. We're going to have a panel discussion with our vendors. So we've got three vendor representatives on our panel. We will then open it up to Q&A with the panelists if we've got time. We're on a very tight schedule today. If you put a question into chat for either ADP or a vendor panel, we don't get a chance to get to it. Like AJ said, we will make sure that we track it and we will get back to you. We're then going to go straight into Q&A with ADP, and then we'll have closing remarks, and we'll be wrapped up at 1. I do want to give a special thank you to our sponsors, Human Care Group and Motion LP. We thank you very much. Without your support, we would not be here. I would like to draw your attention to the anti-competition alert. As we are a trade/industry association, we are bound by this legislation, and therefore it is the policy of OHMEA and its members to comply with laws and regulations applicable to their activities and to ensure that while conducting OHMEA business, we abide by the antitrust policy and guidelines. So why does it matter? Let's talk about e-submissions in general. First of all, fax submissions end December 31st. So we got to get our skates on. Anybody who's not currently on e-submissions or not entirely on e-submissions, you've got a fairly short period of time to get up to speed. Secondly, e-submissions are a game changer. I haven't heard a single vendor say they wish we could go back to the old way of doing things. If you're not on e-submissions, I almost guarantee you are going to find it really changes your life and your cash flow if you get on that program. Now, there are some resources available. Keep in mind, not just during this webinar, but afterwards, you've got several places that you can go for information. If you've got a question about the process, the procedure, your best bet is ADP. Go direct with them and get an answer. You can also ask OHMEA. Please reach out to us to share anything that you're looking for. If you've got looking for some background information or maybe a why or what is OHMEA's position on something, please reach out to us and we're happy to answer any questions you've got. If we don't have the answer, we're also happy to raise them in our calls with ADP. We have monthly calls with ADP, and we use that opportunity, amongst other things, to discuss questions we're getting from our members. Also keep in mind, if you are a vendor or a manufacturer, we have councils for both. So the vendor council, the manufacturers council, they meet on a monthly basis, and the vendor council will enable you to get information, feedback, and the vendor council also.
Does it matter?
Chad, if you could unmute or mute yourself. The vendor council also enables the vendor council to help OHMEA set its priorities in terms of government relations. I do want to thank ADP for this initiative. E-submissions has been absolutely fantastic. And I also want to thank ADP for being responsive and open to observations and concerns that have been raised by vendors. Now, what I'd like to do is hand the opening remarks over to Jeff Preston, our president. Jeff.
Thank you, Erin. Welcome, everyone. What a great turnout today. I see we currently have 73 people on this webinar, and we had over 100 registered. So, I think that's a record for us. And I think it's proof that the OHMEA board and members are actively engaged in everything that's going on today, and especially around this topic of e-submission for ADP applications. I just want to say that, we asked for it and we got it, for a number of years. We really wanted a more streamlined electronic process for submitting applications. And, in our collaborative work with ADP, that came to fruition, and we're very, very happy about that. And I just want to say that it's good for everyone, especially our clients. I mean, if we can have a more streamlined, efficient process for all, then that benefits our clients at the end of the day, and that's what is our focus and most important. I want to reiterate what Erin said and say a special thank you to David Satchow and the rest of the ADP team that's with us today for implementing this process, for their support and collaboration and putting it out there and answering everything that we ever asked, and working together on this transition towards the end of this year where e-submissions will be mandatory. I'm going to introduce those teams shortly. So a few other updates from OHMEA while we have you. I'm going to keep these very brief, but you can certainly reach out to myself or any board member or Erin anytime for updates on what's going on in our industry. But I think you all realize, anyone involved in at the vendor and manufacturer level, and all of our members are challenged with supply chain issues, whether that be access to products, material costs, logistical nightmares around containers and shipments from overseas. We're all very challenged by that right now. It seems to be still snowballing, and OHMEA is working with all of our members, our stakeholder groups, and all of our funders, so that everyone is aware of the impact of the supply chain challenges. In terms of on October the 1st, a milestone will take place around the pricing of walker and rollators through the ADP program. This is top of mind for all of our members, and I know we had a webinar, I believe it was on the 16th of September, where we had very robust discussion from our manufacturer and vendors around implementation of this change. What this amounts to is, at the end of the day, clients, based on the ADP definitions of those products, clients will be, I believe, getting products with less features and potentially paying more for the accessories and convenience that they were able to deal with in the past. And I think that's going to result in in increased costs for clients and less features available. But we'll see how that all washes out. And again, we're working with our stakeholder and funder partners on this, and we'll see where that goes. Interim payments, the payback of ADP monies from the COVID 2020 experience is well underway. As you know, I think it's been a very manageable process for OHMEA members, and I hope everyone realizes the work that we put into that. And again, ADP's support in making that as manageable as possible. Another agenda item for OHMEA has been, ADP audits and the transparency of the process around that. And again, I think we've had that process spelled out for us, along with what the expectations of audit are. And as we go forward, I think we have fairly clear ground there, and we'll continue to answer questions around that process as we go forward. Also, we're collaborating with ADP currently on stakeholder input for pricing reviews, and that is progressing, and we're very happy with the progress to date and where that will end up down the road. So our involvement and the involvement of stakeholders, I think we believe, is crucial in landing on the correct pricing for devices for Ontarians. I wanted to mention about NARTS. We have over 200 applications now, which is fantastic. This is across Canada, but I think Ontario, again, holds the bulk of this. And just really a reminder for those working in the complex rehab area that, we really believe this is a designation and a level of training and that is required really for anyone working in the complex rehab space. So if you haven't already talked to your teams or registered your team members, I think it's something you should really pay attention to. Aaron mentioned the vendor and manufacturer councils. All I want to say here is we rely on our vendors and manufacturer councils from the OHMEA members to provide perspective to the board and direction to the board on what the priorities are. And I can tell you that these councils are becoming more and more influential as time goes on to myself and the board members of what we're focused on. And it's time to renew memberships. So for the coming year, so please, if you've received a membership renewal from us, please get that returned to us. We appreciate that very much. And any new members that you may know of that should be on us, let us know, and we'll reach out to any potential new members that should be on. But I think our coverage is pretty strong now around Ontario. The last thing before I get to the introductions, I just want to mention, in case anyone drops off later, is that our AGM, our annual general meeting, will be held on November the 3rd. It'll be a virtual meeting. And we have quite a slate of directors to be voted in to our board, and a great slate of speakers. We'll be announcing that, I believe, in the coming weeks, Aaron, in terms of speakers for the AGM. So that'll be our next get together, I believe, I think, or one that's really necessary for members to attend on November the 3rd. So thanks for letting me express all of these priorities. There's a lot going on. Thank you for that. And now I'll introduce the panelists from our member vendor community. Don Mackay from HME, Allison Cederer from Living Well Home Medical Equipment, and Linda Norton from Motion. Erin, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I will share with you that after the panel discussion is finished with the vendors, we'll be going to Q&A with ADP, and we are going to be speaking with Emily Zito, Ian Lowe, and Kenrick Leon. All right, let's get to our panel discussion. This is going to be a roller coaster ride. We're going to be racing through this, but you guys are going to get some really great information from the panelists. So what I'd like to start off with is just a context question. Can you tell me how your company is managing the e-submission process? In other words, what is the process for getting the application information from the authorizer into the e-submissions portal, and who does what? Can I start off with you, Allison?
Sure. So in our office, the ADP applications are primarily still coming by paper. So they would come to the sales rep generally and then passed into the office. At the office, again, we still review them. There's 2 people that review every ADP for accuracy and make sure it's correct. And then it's passed over to our admin staff, and Sam enters all the ADPs in character for character, transcribes them into the e-portal, and works great. So.
Okay, so basically we've got the authorizer puts something on paper, it goes to the sales rep, goes to the office, gets entered character for character, and then it's submitted to the portal. Why don't we go to Dawn? Is your process any different than that?
No. So surprisingly, I think you'll find them all very similar. We're probably 70-30 split in terms of actually taking the paper and transposing as opposed to just reviewing. So we've got about 30% of our partners are loading, and we're doing the review on that. I think you're going to the difference is just going to be with volumes. So we've got, a lot more people doing them in terms of transposing. Some folks that had other roles before, customer service, along those lines, where now that's part of their role, and others where we've added, a few bodies, part-time and full-time to help with that process. So pretty similar across the province, I think you'll find.
Thanks very much, Dawn. Linda, do you have anything to add to that, or your process is different?
I would just say that we've been working with our therapists in partnership. So the majority of the applications that we get are in the electronic version, and we've developed a number of ways to transfer them securely. The advantage is there's no risk of data entry errors because it's a prescription that the therapist has done.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. And really what we want to know here is, what has your experience been? What are the advantages? Are there any disadvantages or challenges? Allison, let's start with you again.
Great. The e-submission process is fantastic. I mean, it's something we've been asking ADP for, I don't know, at least a decade, I think. And it's great to see it here, and it works really, really well. Only takes, for instance, if you're entering a walker, it takes probably less than 5 minutes to transpose it and enter it. And we are working with our therapists. I do think that we'll eventually get there where they will submit them electronically, but there's still some hesitation. But certainly on our end, to be able to transpose that application, have it in like I said, 5 minutes, and then get paid for it. That's the most amazing thing, is you're paid. You could enter it on a Monday and get paid the following Monday. Like it's very quick. And one of the things that I've really noticed with the e-submission lately is that when we're entering them, it will actually not let you complete the application and upload it if there's any errors with the demographics or the spelling of the client's name or health card information. So that's something that ADP must have added into the background, that they're actually checking that stuff. So if your health card number is off by 2 digits or reversed or something like that, before it would take a month. By the time you found out that it was incorrect and then got it corrected and resubmitted, it would be a month. But now it's almost instant. You know that it's not right. You can go back, get the right information and correct it and upload it. So it's great. It's so much faster. Wheelchairs are getting paid we can get a wheelchair approved faster than I can get a wheelchair in now with all the shipping shortages. So
Yeah, and that's a whole other problem.
yeah, and hopefully that's short term, but I think it's going to be a couple of years, but relatively short term. So
I will note that when we get to the ADP Q&A, we will be talking about matching health card information, but that was a challenge that we were hearing from a lot of vendors, just not knowing what was wrong. And now that we have that check going on at the ADP, and that's a great improvement. Dawn, do you have anything to add to that? Advantages with e-submissions, any challenges that you're dealing with?
Just on that last point, I think that's been a fantastic addition to the program. So saving time all over the place. Obviously speed, we all know that, and everything Allison said we're feeling, and I think just based on the size of your company is just where you move the decimal in terms of the impact. We've been very, very early adopters here. We were, day one, we couldn't wait like the rest of you. Rejections, the amount of time, we're shaving months off of that process, where bounce back and then back and then back again, and to find out. And I think too, one of the things that maybe isn't getting mentioned as much is we don't have the dead space anymore in terms of where our orders are. So, they've left here and they're not on any reports, right? So if it gets uploaded now, it's on a report somewhere. It's live, and it's not, you don't see the weeks and weeks of, we don't know, confirmation yet of where it is in the system. That's been one of the biggest things in terms of allowing us to plan and to address issues. So that's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dawn and Allison. Linda, what would you like to add to that?
I will just say we've been tracking all of the ADP applications, so I can actually give you data that's real. So the average time to first response from ADP prior to e-submission was 42 days. Now that's down to 0 for the vast majority of applications. Now we get our report a couple of days later, but the approval date is the same day. So it's absolutely fantastic. What I will say is it's just really important that the application is correct the first time around. It's great to get a response like this, but if somebody's missed something off of the application or the eligibility criteria hasn't been met, then the response that you get isn't what you're expecting. So just really important that the application is complete and correct the first time in.
Thanks very much, Linda. And it sounds like one real benefit for this is that if something is wrong, you know fairly quickly what's wrong and you have the opportunity to correct it. So that saves an enormous amount of time for clients. All right, let's talk about money. Let's start with you, Dawn. What about direct financial costs or financial benefits related to e-submissions? I mean, we know from a cash flow perspective, there's a financial benefit there because we are getting paid in a very timely manner. What about any other financial costs or benefits?
Yeah, and it's interesting to apply a cost to that, because everybody always says right now money's cheap, and that really isn't, in terms of your terms and trying to manage that. That's wonderful. Decision making has been fantastic at that. Where we're seeing a true savings is lost orders. If something was taking 8 or 10 weeks to approve, depending on where your business sits, you have a high rate of clients who pass away during that process or something along those lines. That's almost non-existent now. Very, very, very seldom do we see anything like that, or transferring institutions or moving to another place. This is all really in real time now, almost retail with the clinical component. So that's been exciting. We've had to certainly incur some staff costs in terms of because we've chosen to transpose 70% of our orders right now. So that for us is a cost that we have. It's an added cost per order, but it's not, in terms of the benefits, it's certainly manageable for us. And the more we can get into our regular staff stream, the better. I think it's been a busy and interesting time with COVID and then the supplier disruptions, but under normal circumstances, we could get most of our work done with the existing staff. So it's almost entirely benefit for us is what we've seen.
Dawn, maybe I don't want to preempt the question we're going to talk about earlier with respect to secure transmission and authorizers' concerns about that. But I know that some organizations have invested in secure data transmission software. Apart from staff increases in cost, were those the ability to manage secure transactions? Has that been a meaningful financial cost or not?
No, it has not been a meaningful financial cost, and we're doing it. So we're happy with where we are. And I think, you know, this is all, we talk a lot about this, and this is almost more secure, but I always say, and we can get to it at the next point, but what, you know, how secure was a rep leaving a file full of ADP forms at a Tim Hortons behind before, right? Like this is you've got a better chance, I think, of security being in place right now. This, and hasn't cost us much at all.
Thank you, Don. I want to go over to you, Allison, because your shop is a bit smaller than Don's. Have you had meaningful staff hour increases? Are you managing that workload?
So we've always had one full-time person working on ADPs, and the difference is now they're transposing them or transcribing them into ADP, and we're getting approvals quickly. As before, they would always be working on errors. So they would be, you know, we had massive spreadsheets on tracking wheelchairs, you know, what's going on with this one. And it's very onerous when you're waiting 2 to 3 months to get a response on a wheelchair. Then you got to go back and refresh yourself with the file. So once you get an answer, there was a lot of time wasted to go and refresh yourself with the file and what's wrong and going through that. So our personnel costs just changed from fixing a lot of errors to now just transcribing. And as we see more therapists sending them in electronically, we will have less cost there. So that would be great. And there's been no cost to us for the submission. So some therapists are sending them to us. Some of them have set up their own portal for an entire therapy firm. And then others are sending them to us where they just put in all of the information except for the name, or they'll just put in the initials and send it to us. So there's ways to send them to us securely without any risk of privacy, etc. So, and the one thing I wanted to mention too that we never even thought of in this process is that we deal with the hospital. When somebody's admitted to hospital, needs a wheelchair, they've had a stroke or something's happened, but they're going to be in hospital still for 2 to 3 weeks recovering. A lot of times the ADP authorizer in the hospital wouldn't start that ADP because they knew they wouldn't be able to finish it. So now we're getting authorizers that will actually prescribe the wheelchair right then and there in the hospital. So it's better for the clients. It's a better system for the clients too. They're getting their equipment faster.
Oh, that's fantastic, getting it when they need it.
Yeah.
Linda, I'd like to go over to you because I know that you've taken a slightly different approach at Motion. You have, if I recall correctly, you have decided you're not going to transcribe information from authorizers, but you've set up a different way of doing it. Are you able and willing to share that with us?
Sure. So when e-submission started, I spent a lot of time talking to the authorizer community, and they brought up really 3 concerns. One was privacy that we've talked about in the transmission of private health information. The second one was the integrity of the application. They were concerned about vendors correcting their prescription, is what I had heard, and then also losing control or visibility to what had happened to that application. So with that in mind, we have set up a number of different ways of dealing with privacy. And as Allison said, the simplest one is not to put the client name and health card number on the application, that gets transferred by voice. So it's a really easy way of doing that. We also have a couple of other options in terms of encrypted email, as well as data transfer platforms. In terms of the integrity of the application, that's really where we won't make a change on that application without the therapist making that change and initialing it. And they're, for the most part, been really good about updating the ADP application. So that's where our process varies a little bit. But the advantage for the therapist is there's a total transparency about what they've signed, what they've initialed, and what actually goes in, so that there's a lot of confidence in that system.
Thanks very much, Linda. So you guys have chosen to make an investment, but in your opinion, it's making it faster, easier, and alleviating authorizers' concerns from the way that you've handled it.
Exactly.
Well, Linda, that's a nice segue into what you're hearing from authorizers. You had mentioned that there were 3 concerns from the authorizer's perspective: privacy of personal health information, the integrity of the application, and visibility, authorizer visibility into where the application is. Have you seen any other challenges coming from authorizers?
Just to talk about the privacy one, I think is probably where there's the most interesting conversations, because even where the authorizer is on board to do e-submission, sometimes there's a conflict between what the authorizer would like to do, what the privacy officer says is okay, and then what their IT department says. So there's been a number of conversations between different parties in terms of how to do this best within our healthcare system. And I think it's been really helpful in a lot of ways to have those conversations and be upfront about, okay, how do we best protect people's privacy and think about what the legislation says versus, well, I'm not going to do this because we never have. So it's been a really helpful set of conversations, I think.
Thanks very much, Linda. And you came up with a great idea that you just alluded to earlier, but I just want to make sure that we emphasize this for vendors on the line that are not in a position to set up a technical solution for safe transmission. Allison referred to this as well too. If you don't have the technology, or it's just not something that you are in a position to be able to implement right now, if you send the information without the personal health information and just with a reference, then you can provide that via telephone. And it's a really low-tech, secure transmission. You're only giving that PHI directly to the vendor verbally. I think, Linda, you had also indicated that you aren't using this yourself at Motion, but you had indicated that apparently if you're using Office 365, that there is a way to encrypt email transmissions through 365.
That's right. I'm not a total expert, but I do know that the IT systems can turn on a feature in Office 365 that allows you to send a specifically encrypted email if you're signed in. So we do use that. We have that capability. If you're using Office 360 and you don't see an option for encrypted email, it's not automatically done, then you're probably going to want to talk to either Microsoft, or if you have an IT specialist who can help you with the settings, that's where it is in terms of allowing everybody access to that feature.
So if you're already using 365, this is free. You just need to figure out how to use it.
That's right.
Allison, let me go to you. Are you have you seen any other challenges that have been expressed by authorizers?
Yeah, I think the one that was brought up in the chat session by Lisa there was the question around signatures, because you can't get electronic signatures on the forms. So the date is considered essentially the electronic signature. When you put that date in, it's considered signed for the electronic portion of it. So that's been one area that's been of concern to therapists, in addition to what Linda mentioned, so the privacy.
Mm-hmm. Dawn, do you have anything to add? Any concerns that have been expressed by authorizers? Any challenge with their take-up of the e-submission process?
No, I think those concerns, I think, have been expressed perfectly. Those we would share those. I think those are universal across the province. Some of the take-up is just the technology at the end, at the therapist end, and it seems to be ADP keeps implementing positive changes as we move along. Going from PDF to HTML and things like that will make it easier for people who live on a handheld and all of that. And I think we also, on all of these I call them littler concerns, but it's why we're at 70-30. In terms of getting manuals and transcribing ourselves. That's a solution, an old tech solution to the new tech problem. But no, it's going to be the same as always, and there'll be people that are slower on uptake. You think back a year and a half, nobody knew how to use Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and we all figured it out pretty good, and now we live in this world. So I think this is the benefits to everybody, and that's the thing. We're talking as OHMEA, we're talking about the benefits to vendors. Allison touched on the benefits to clients, right? It's incredible, the benefits to therapists, everybody in the chain. The stakes are too high and to not have this adopted and figured out pretty quickly. And I think that's where we are right now. Is everybody's benefiting at every level. I haven't seen the downside yet, except to maybe there's some added dollars cost in staff, but not much. I think this is very exciting.
Thanks very much, all of you. I do want to note that ADP has a position on secure transmission of data. So we will be sharing those questions with ADP in this next segment. I just want to ask, maybe starting off with you, Dawn, do you have any suggestions for vendors who are not using e-submissions?
Use it. Is that too simple? Like you need to get on board. It's certainly a competitive advantage. It's good for your clients. It's good for your referral partners. It's good for you. If you're concerned about the work in transcribing, then get on board and work with your referral partners like Linda's done to get them to do it. I think that's a solution for everybody, and I'm more confident that we'll get there naturally. But absolutely, I haven't found, I can't think of a reason not to do this, and we've been asking for it for years. So you know, it's here now and it's awesome.
Linda and Allison, do you have anything to add? Thank you, Dawn.
I think the only thing to add is just to be really specific about the paperwork that you keep. As you'll know, you only upload the application, all of the attachments and the originals as a vendor you need to hang on to. Much easier to have a really great filing system at the beginning than try to find that one piece of paper, you know, a year or 2 years down the line when there's an audit or a claims verification. So that would be the only advice, is just to make sure you really set up a specific filing system so you have access to all of that stuff.
Allison, do you have anything to add?
No, just I think as more people use it, ADP is going to refine it even more and more. So as we've seen with demographic information just being added, I think in last month or so, not sure exactly when it was added, I think we'll see more advantages to using it. So it's, you know, get on board as soon as you can. It's great.
Okay, thank you. I've just got one more question. We're going to wrap this up quickly and then move on to the ADP Q&A. Do you have, any of you, and let's maybe start with Linda, do you have any requests for ADP regarding the e-submission process? Is there anything that you feel that ADP could do to enhance the process that we'd like to share with them?
I think the only request would be one that I know that ADP is always looking at and is continuing to look at, is around visibility for the authorizers. I know that that isn't possible right now, but it's certainly something that I've heard that authorizers would like to be able to go in and look to see what the status of the claim is with ADP or what's been approved, rather than waiting for their reports. So that would be the one comment, and I can see in the chat that that's something that has come up in that chat as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda. Dawn and Allison, do you have anything to add to that? Any other requests for ADP?
I do, and they'll get there. I think is bulk upload. Being able to send them in bulk would be fantastic for us. I think that's something that we're anticipating excitedly.
Thank you very much to our vendor panelists. In the interest of time, I'm going to hold Q&A for the vendors. If we don't get to it, I will make sure that all of your questions in chat are sent to the vendor panel, and we will respond back with answers. But in the interest of time, I'm going to move quickly on to ADP Q&A. So if our ADP team could let us see your smiling faces, we'll get started with those questions.